First, let's go to Republican West Virginia Attorney General Patrick Morrisey. He led a coalition of states in writing the brief to the Supreme Court supporting the former president in this case. He's also running for the governor of West Virginia. General, good to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us today. Tell me your reaction to this and tell me what impact your amicus brief may have had on the thinking of the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. So thank you, Martha, for having me on. All along, we had believed that the actions on the states to disqualify President Trump from the ballot would always be found invalid because this was essentially a federal decision. We know that the states have been trying to put out some extra criteria that's not included under the Constitution. That's not part of the categorical criteria where you exclude someone from office. Let's say it's natural-born citizen or the number of terms you've been in office. So we thought all along, in order for someone to be vulnerable to being thrown off the ballot, you needed to have a federal decision by Congress. That obviously didn't occur, and so we thought that we were going to be correct in our arguments that we put forth, that the Supreme Court would say the states lack the power to do it, plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, we listened to the fascinating discussion on all of this at the Supreme Court when the audio was played. And, you know, you heard some of the arguments that there's just no precedent for a state kicking someone off the ballot. This is the leading contender for the GOP nomination, as we mentioned. So one of the interesting things here, I think one of the prominent things here, is that this was a unanimous 9-0 decision. So tell us what you think went into the thinking of, for example, Justices Kagan or Brown-Jackson, who may have been inclined to vote against this.
Well, I think if you heard the Supreme Court argument, you got a sense that even some of the more liberally leaning judges were going to be sympathetic to Trump's argument because they were asking about what might happen. And I think all of the justices concluded that chaos would ensue if you could allow individual states to step in and rule that someone's disqualified, that would be the worst form of election interference. So I think we started to get that sense during the oral argument. And that makes sense, right? Because we're talking about a uniquely federal office, a national office. This is different than running for governor or a statewide office. This is the presidency of the United States that have specific rules. And if you're going to let a Secretary of State who's unelected make that decision, or a court in Colorado without actually having a criminal finding of insurrection make that decision,
that's a little problematic.
Very problematic.
Yeah, exactly. He hasn't been charged in any of these counts with insurrection, and these states independently decided that he was guilty of it, and therefore used a tenet of the Constitution to try to kick him off their state ballot. And it seems that cooler heads have prevailed here in the Supreme Court today. Attorney General Morrisey, thank you very much for joining us today from West Virginia. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate it.